everybody. My name is Tabitha. This is the Starlight Haven, and I am here finally in March, the end of March, with our 2025 energy report. And I have my notes here, so I'll probably be looking here and there and kind of getting all of this information for you guys. Spoken to the best of my ability. I had intended to do this back in January, so I would have something prepared and could see what was going on. And then, 2025 actually happened, and I realized that I needed to experience it for myself so I could provide the information in a more embodied way, because quite literally I just did not know what was going on. I was like, this is crazy, this is wild, I don't understand any of it. And now I think I have a better idea, and this is going to be heavily focused on Israel, Jerusalem, most specifically, and the goddess that had once been worshipped there. So the word that was coming in for 2025 the strongest was the word upheaval. And so we are seeing dramatic changes, and much of the collective shadow is going to be coming forward to wake us up and open our hearts. And this has been happening, right? But it's going to be intensified this year for a purpose. And so we are asking, or we are being asked to erect our own temple within our hearts and our homes. So if you identify with the priestess archetype, or priest archetype, this is going to be the time that you are going to really be beckoned loudly by the goddess to return to the temple in a new way. And that is because I am feeling the coming of the return of the goddess to Israel, and specifically Jerusalem. So how is this happening? Well, in 2024, we were experiencing a lot of the Saturnian distortions and how those were going to be clearing so we could reclaim parts of ourselves that were going to be needed in order to prepare the body for heart opening and expansion. So it was really about planting the seeds needed to fix these broken structures that have us experiencing burnout, anxiety, depression, and much worse in other countries, or better, depending on where we are speaking about. But it is very much the dismantling of distorted structures. 2025 is not going to be the end of this energy, but the amplification of it through Black Lilith Moon. And so we are seeing the structures, right? We've seen them in 2024 and maybe prior, but collectively we've been seeing them more intensely in 2024. And so now 2025 is going to be the upheaval. So the upheaval of these structures is going to occur. And we are now being presented with a way our identities have been very closely tied to these distorted structures, and how we've been set up for failure in very, very many ways from the time that we come onto this planet and are born. Black Lilith Moon is coming forward this year to present us with her wild woman energy. And you don't have to be a woman to experience this, right? We all have masculine and feminine properties. And so this is going to speak to the rebel that exists within us, the one who knows that they aren't simply just an outcast, but somebody who's meant to shift and change society. And so with this wild woman energy, she's assisting us in reclaiming our stories. So you are actually able to look up Black Lilith Moon in your own astrology chart, because I am not an astrologist and could not even begin to really tell you guys astrologically what all of that energy means. I'm just kind of presenting how it's showing up in the collective, but I will leave a link to a website in which you can go ahead and check out your own chart and see where Black Lilith is, and it will kind of show you how those energies really present themselves for you personally. Continuing on, depending on what story you choose to follow, Lilith was typically described as the first Eve. She refused to lie under Adam, because she wanted to be his equal. And so the story ended up serving as kind of a cautionary tale for women that if you were too wild and untamed, you would be cast out of God's embrace. And that's not just for women, right? Because we do have those feminine qualities. And I think a big part of what needs to shift in our society is if you're a man or you're a woman, you're only seeing yourself as such, and we're not seeing ourselves with the qualities of the masculine and the feminine also, because that is what is creating balance within our system. Then I'm going to provide you guys with is a description from Channy's website, and she's actually an astrologer, so I like the way that she describes Lilith's energy in relation to our own being and how it relates to our energy report today. And so she states that Lilith is the protector of all who live on the margins and all who refuse to be ground down or declawed by oppressive structures. So the Black Lilith Moon really represents the taboo parts of ourselves that we shame, parts of us that are the outliers, right? The outliers of society that don't fully fit in, and that shouldn't be seen as really something that holds us back, but as something that can propel us forward as a society. When we turn our gaze to that darkness, and see these aspects, we are building a temple within our being of true compassion and love. We become the Mother Goddess incarnate, and we are able to show ourselves that same compassion that the Queen of Heaven does, because we are her. And we begin to create this new story for ourselves and purge out these toxic narratives, because we see ourselves as infinitely worthy to choose. We have choice. We have the power to choose, not an illusion, right? The true power of choice that begins to dismantle the construct of slavery that exists within us in our society. Healing is building to the return of the goddess to Israel, especially Jerusalem. This goddess has a name, and her name is Asherah, and she is known as the goddess of the sea, a goddess of fertility and creation. She was a primordial mother goddess that was once worshipped as the wife of God, who in Canaanite times was referred to as El, and he later transitioned to the Israelite god Yahweh. 2025 is also the year of the snake, which is a year of deep healing and transformation, very in tune with the Kundalini energy, where it really rises up the spine quickly and it activates our cosmic remembrance. And so it's no surprise that Asherah would be associated with snakes and trees, the very prominent figures of the creation story of Genesis. Asherah, however, appears even before the Bible in Ugaritic tablets that predate the Old Testament. It had finally made it to the Bible. She was diminished to an object of cult worship, a warning to burn the grove if you did not want to commit idolatry. And the grove for her would have been her connection to the trees and to us, essentially, because we are like trees. We are essentially trees. However, they could never fully eradicate her because she was mentioned in the Bible multiple times, but as a warning. Do not worship her, cut down the poles, burn the groves if you do not want to be punished. So why would she have been mentioned in the Bible at all? Well, it's because people were still worshiping her. There was still a threat of the goddess within this society. And so they had to create a narrative in which she was no longer of importance and even an evil act, in order to really maintain control and create this narrative of a monotheistic society and God, where everything could really be focused in on Yahweh. So a jealous God threatened war, famine, and death because of the worship that was occurring of Asherah. And these are still curses that are intact on this land today, because they became a spell that was seated in fear through pain and blood. These things are going to intensify in this area because they are still attempting to repress the goddess. But what is happening is the resurrection and homecoming of her within our hearts, which is not something that can be stopped at this point. We are here and we are the incarnate of her. So we are opening our body temples to her in solidarity for her and her people and for the land that is there. She's associated with trees because we are her grove. And with that association, we have trees all around us, and we are connected to those trees. They are a reflection of us, and us a reflection of them. All of those trees that we are also connected to in the Middle East, we are connected to all of these things telepathically because we are a network. Through this grove, she is alive and well within so many of us. And through our own reclamation of our stories, we are showing ourselves and the rest of humanity the love and compassion that was really just taken from us. And now we get to reclaim and rebuild what that means to each and every one of us on an individual basis. And that in itself contains the medicine that the world needs, that is seeded through the trees, and part of that weaving that we've done for her through centuries, even through her attempted erasure. I will say that there are definitely evils in this world. And so when I say this, I mean it in the sense of things that were wrongly deemed as evil and defiant, that we are reclaiming those things and shedding light on them because they were really only ever an expression of what was our natural being, right? Like, it is not evil to be a woman. It is not evil to be defiant. It is not evil to worship the mother, which exists within all of creation, right? How could we have made a father and not a mother when it's so present within our society in the way we create? You know, no matter how you identify, like, even if we're not talking about procreation of children and we're talking about creating in general, creating art, like, you are bringing forward all parts of yourself, masculine and feminine principles, to create something that and birth something that is fully aligned with who you are. And that is coming from the womb space, right? The primordial womb that keeps us safe and houses us and nurtures us and lets us know that it is totally okay that we are here and that we are meant to be here and that this is our home and we can feel safe on earth. This year, I encourage everyone to deeply look within yourself, especially if you're feeling like helpless when you're looking out into what is happening in the world, because we've been pretty manipulated, into believing the answers come from outside of us. But you are a book that contains all that is true for you. And you are the master of that reality. So you get to remember things that are stored within that temple, right? Because temples, like, if you think about archaeological sites where a lot of the goddess has been remembered now and has been shown to us again, it is through those temples that her message and all of the proof has been stored. And that's the same thing with our body temples. We are a reflection of that. We are the temple that's rising and contains all of that information so it can be restored to the grids that are on our planet. And so that's all I have for now and 2025. I will probably have more stuff coming, but I just wanted to get this out now because it felt like the right time. So I'm sending you all so much love and joy for 2025. Bye.